Okay, so I have to put my little picture down here. I got permission from Sensei Spoonamore, which is Solitaire Spoonamore, to record and showcase this video. Solitaire was an upstanding member of the Manabe Martial Jiu-Jitsu Masters, and she was later an instructor and sensei. And she currently is with her husband teaching Spoonamore Spoonamore martial arts. Excuse me. Solitaire is very loved by many of the students. There's literally hundreds of students in this area that were under the training of Solitaire Spoonamore and John Casarez, who was the Grand Master. And I think I left Manabe Masho Jiu Jitsu somewhere between 2011 and 2012. I left for around 4 years. I was still kind of in the background, still seeing John. I came back to him somewhere around 2017. Got involved again later on, but this is the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure what year this was. This was a year that I was not there, and I have permission from her to post this, so let's go ahead and watch it. This is the World Head of Family Soki-ship Council. Now the Uki that she's throwing around, I cannot remember his name. I think he is still a police officer for South Point, Ohio. I cannot remember his name. He started there around the time that I'd already left, so he was under the training of Grandmaster John Casarez and Solitaire Spoonamore. Sensei Solitaire Spoonamore is the one putting him in the armbar right now. They're demonstrating a lot of different moves. I'll shut up here in a minute. Our system was well known for counter to counter to counter to counters. It wasn't just we did the move, it was counter to counters. So you will see in this demonstration that the Uki is fighting back in some of the things. The Solitaire's able to counter and throw him and so on and so forth. You did not see this very often with most other jiu-jitsu and judo martial arts. It was I hate to say it, but some of the other systems was a one move, one hit wonders. So they would teach you a really good move and it was a one hit wonder, but when somebody countered it, they didn't know what to do. Our system did not deal with that. We countered, then we counters, and then we had counter, and in some cases counter. Now right here he's countering her. She countered him. He counters her, she counters him. Now this is Johnny Casarez working with Solitaire Spoonamore, and Johnny is showing things slow here. He was very fast through his years, but he slows things down to show other people.
When you hit there, that's your disarm. Okay? Grab it there. When you main thing is just to get out of the time. Dance, swings, you get hit.
One thing in Manabe Master Jiu-Jitsu is we were sometimes confused with Kung Fu. Later on in my years, I went into Wing Chun Kung Fu, and there were some people that were like, well, who trained you in Chin Na? My God, your Chin Na is amazing. Because traditional, depending on where you go, some traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and Judo was very stiff, very robotic. John Casarez was very against that. He wanted a flow. He was saying everything is a dance. He constantly talked about it being a dance. That's what he's demonstrating here. It looks a little like Tai Chi in some ways, but it's 100% Jiu-Jitsu. It's just done with physics and in a flow. And later in my Kung Fu years, people were always asking me where I learned my Chin Na from. Chin Na is the Kung Fu system of joint locks, throws, takedowns. And I'd always tell them, no, this is Jiu-Jitsu. And they were like, no, that's not Jiu-Jitsu, that's Kung Fu. but it was Manabi martial jiu-jitsu.
Watch straight. Why take a punch? Fly back here. Anytime you back, you fight the person twice. You go and get it done. Get your job done. Why? Okay? So the thing with this, say she gets me an arm bar. Okay.
So he was demonstrating an arm bar. She gets him in an arm bar, and it's a standing arm bar, and he's rolling around with it. Most people never even seen this. They really had. You'd think they'd had, but no. I'm going to rewind it.
She gets me an arm bar. Okay. I'm going to keep it fast. You're going to film. You're going to watch it. I do about 8 or 10. I don't know. I left my arm set up. I just do it. Screw it up. I screw it. An arm bar.
All right, he's pointing out that she has to come because he's locking down his armpit. This is something that was very famous in our system. If the other person's arm got there, we would lock it down, we'd step back, and they have two options. They either have to come with you or they have to counter it. If they're not countering it, if they're stiff and they're holding it, you'll pull them easier because once they stiffen, they go with it. So that's what it's hard to hear him over all the noise, but that's what he's expressing here and explaining. Now, after these demonstrations, he would normally start working out with everybody in the crowd. They'd see real quick this stuff is real. There were so many people from Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu and Judo, especially BJJ. They were always whining, talking about how hard Grandmaster John Casarez locked their fingers. Because when he's doing it here with Solitaire, it looks like he's barely got her, but that's not the case, guys. He had a death grip. And we learned how to get death grips on other people. Grips that they were not going to get out of. You'll notice he doesn't move much. That's another thing he incorporated, is you want minimum movement and minimum energy wasted from you, but maximum effort. So this is where, in my Kung Fu years, a lot of people thought I was in Kung Fu, because modern day Judo, they'll always trip and step the guy. They look robotic. They'll be with strength, and you don't need it. You do not need the strength. John Casarez was very against the certain hip throws where you lift up a person and you're putting them on your hip. You're bending the knees down, lifting them up. It was all it was all involving strength, involving using your body as a jack to lift the person up. Johnny would demonstrate it, and he probably does it in this many times. But he was pointing out why even do that when all I got to do is step behind the person, get behind one of their feet, and all I got to do is move their head or move their shoulder, and where you take the head, the body has to follow. That's a rule in Manabi martial jiu-jitsu. If I can move your head and I'm standing on your foot right here, but I'm moving your head this way, you're going to tilt that way. Now your body mass is this way, and I can easily push you. I don't need to pick you up and throw you. So that's one of the things that we had a rule in Manabi martial jiu-jitsu. Maximum damage and effort in combat with minimum effort on your part. In other words, we're using physics, we're using a flow. It's like a dance.
She reached up the choke.
Now on this, he's demonstrating to be relaxed. She's coming to choke him, and he's moving and flowing and relaxed.
martial arts, huh? So they don't look like that. Your eyes out. Eyes out. That's all I'm doing. Yes. Just touch it.
See, it's like a dance. As long as she is trying to grab onto him and he's spinning with her, he's taking her energy, flowing with it, she has to go. The only other way is for her to counter that by going faster than him, and she'd have to counter somehow. So this is a demonstration of how this is a dance. This stuff is legit. It is real. We would pull people out of the crowds and work with them and show them. This is not Energy Master crap. This is not bullshito stuff. This is not fake mastery stuff. This is real combat. When you get down to the nitty-gritty parts of it, now, yes, if someone's locked into a stance and they're just throwing a punch and they're not leaning forward, they don't have their body weight going forward, that's a whole nother story. Versus the guy that's in anger and he's rushing out to either grab you, choke you, or even punch you with all his weight coming forward. Big difference.
Become part of the person. She punches. I'll show you stuff right now.
He said you become part of the person. This is where he does... He's pulling her around literally by using his neck to catch her fist. This is something that he would do. We would do this at high velocities, and we would do this several different ways. He would do this with one finger, barely touching the person. So he's going to demonstrate again. This is becoming one with the person.
Didn't use my hand. What? My neck. Ain't got time.
So she's throwing a punch and her body weight is somewhat off balance going towards him to do maximum damage. All he has to do is spin around with catching it, and he's going to pull on her arm just a little bit, and it's going to make her, she's got to take a step forward. But he's spinning around a little fast, so if you can't take a forward step fast enough, you fall. You fall on your face. When we did this to people that had no martial arts training, you would generally see them fall on their face and get hurt, or Johnny would throw them into a wall.
The main thing is, anywhere you grab, so when they hit you, where you hit, make sure it hurts. If you hit, we're going to another. Let's do one technique. She punches out, down, boom, going to hit. Or feeling the banana. Here. You go through so many of them. So what I'll get everybody out, we're going to do some simple blocks. Very few people do the same here. You've been watching me do it for years and years. You got to bend. Because here's what happened. She's going to pull back.
So he's demonstrating that when you do this, it's called the bypass in our system. And he was talking about how you got to bend and you got to become one with the person because they are going to pull back. And when they pull back, good. You just take out their head, you throw them, whatever. But it's the other hand that you got to watch out for. So I'm going to replay that one more time. Johnny's showing, hey, they are going to pull back. Nobody just punches and leaves it there. Johnny hated when other systems would have an uke that would throw a punch and they keep their arm out there like this. And then the other guy's like doing 20 moves and like, you know, like doing all this crazy stuff. And Johnny was like, nah, people don't do that. People punch and they punch and they punch and they punch, or they'll come in and they'll box and peekaboo, or they're rapid punching. And Johnny hated the idea of, oh, they're throwing a punch. The only occasion where we didn't complain is when you saw somebody rushing. They're really mad. They're rushing. That does happen on the street. So let me rewind it.
I guarantee you, nobody lets you stick arm and say, hold it, or when I get back. But she does this, block it down up. That there, look. Here. She pulls her arm out. This is what I do. She pulls it. You got to become part of the person. It's got to be a natural feeling. There's no strain. She punches out. Look. That's funny. Punch out. What? Okay. So everybody get.
So what he's just demonstrating on that is the bypass, and then kind of in mid-flight, she feels him touching, so she's pulling back. So this would be somebody that you're fighting that understands countering really fast. Their muscle memory is super fast. So they're punching, they feel you on the end, they know they've missed their target, they pull back. And because they're pulling back, he's able to throw them back into wrist lock. Your arm, when it's out like this and you pulling it back, your wrist becomes really weak, really weak. 90% of our wrist locks, even though we're starting them here, if the arm is extended, we want that arm to be bent. We want them to pull back. If we can get the arm bent a little bit or them to pull back a little bit, that helps us tremendously with locking this arm. There's some kind of physics there. He would demonstrate that all the time, that if you have the arm out, your wrist is strong. But when you pull your arm back, even though you think you got the same strength, you don't. You can get a wrist lock so easy. And there is some physics involved in that.
Here's what we're going to do. I want you to do this block and this. This and this. And then don't forget, when you pull it back, put the screw to pull it on the block. Lock it. Do it again. Slow. Lock it.
Now, we call this a four-corner lock. It's a four-corner shoulder lock, but it's with a wrist lock. He has a wrist lock and a shoulder lock. And he has his elbow over top of her shoulder where he can hit the back of her neck. You can kill somebody that way. So in that one move, he could snap her wrist, torque her shoulder out of place, possibly ripping it so bad that she'd have to have surgery and never be able to write her name again with a pen or pencil. And then you got your elbow right there. All you got to do is just you jar it into their neck really hard, and you can actually sever the brainstem. This could be a killing move. It could be just to disable them. An elbow at that range, just even doing this, it will stun a person.
Okay, it's time to get out here. Let's try it. Let's go. Come on, Eve. We're going to hit the man hard.
Here, punch at me.
Come on, Sensei, we'll help you.
Okay, so after demonstrations, people come up in order to understand it. The beautiful thing about all these martial artists working together is that you get to see demonstrations, and then right after, you get to work out with the ukis, with the sensei, with the master that was up there, and you get to feel this. So this guy here in the black gi and it's a taekwondo looking outfit, or it could be karate, I don't know. He's working with John Casarez here.
So anyways, we punch out. This is the block. And then the little package is at first he goes, ouch. Is it
Okay, now Solitaire was a 3rd degree black belt, so she was a sensei at this point. She may not have known this, but because the guy that she's working out, he's one of our students. You really need to take out that knee or jump with it. You can absolutely jump with it. I've had to do that. I fought guys that were 7 foot. You have to jump with that in order to get it. And believe me, once you get your elbow over their shoulder behind it, even in midair, they're screwed. They're screwed. If they stand during that when you're coming down on them, it hurts them far more because now it's all my weight coming down and behind you and locking you backwards like this. It's devastating. Most people will directly collapse. So, you know, I'm not critiquing Solitaire. She may not have known at that point. Later on, she was considered one of the head senseis at the dojo. But I would just suggest where he's taller than her, jump over at that point.